What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, spitting statistician Dane Martinez, and we are getting excited because training camp is only about a week or so away, and we will have a lot to discuss in terms of position battles, how people are looking, and unfortunately, maybe even some injuries. But we're going to knock on wood and say that that doesn't happen as this new regime with Aaron Glenn, head defensive coordinator Steve Wilks, offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand, and new franchise quarterback Justin Fields really gets going. And I do want to talk about offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand, especially as it relates to the tight ends and the tight end usage and what that means for second round draft pick Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor was talking about kind of that role in the offense and how they're going to use the tight ends, and he is excited. Check out what Mason Taylor had to say about this. He goes, "We love it. We all have different ways we can impact the game, and I think Tanner Engstrand does a great job of putting us in positions where we can be successful. You can tell by the way we installed stuff and on the practice field that the tight ends are definitely going to be used." And, honestly, Tanner Engstrand has a history of that. When he was in Detroit, okay, the Lions organization actually credited Engstrand with the development of tight ends that they had. And remember, they had TJ Hawkinson, who kind of blossomed early on in his career. Then they drafted Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, as his rookie year as a tight end, had 10 touchdowns, okay? Now, I'm not sure if necessarily Mason Taylor is going to do that, but I really do believe that Mason Taylor is going to be utilized in the passing game. We're all talking about who's going to step up behind Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is an alpha. Garrett Wilson is a legitimate elite wide receiver one, right? I actually think it's going to be Josh Reynolds, who's technically the wide receiver too, but I think Reynolds, along with Mason Taylor, along with Breece Hall out of the backfield, is really going to make up that kind of second tier of receiving production. And then, as I've said here on Jets Latest, I think that Arian Smith will play a role as a deep threat. I think Malachi Corley will play a role as a kind of bubble screen end around guy. And I think Alan Lazard will be involved as well. But remember, Mason Taylor is one of the better receiving tight ends in the country last year, and quite frankly, the best in LSU history. He had only one drop, so sure-handed for Mason Taylor. 68% of his receptions went for first downs. He had 55 catches last year at LSU and is the only tight end in LSU history with 100 catches and 1,000 yards in his career. We've also talked about how Justin Fields in his career has had a lot of success throwing to the tight end. So I think Fields throwing to the tight end, Engstrand's resume in terms of developing young tight ends in Detroit with Hawkinson and Laporta, and the fact that Mason Taylor is kind of primed and ready to go. You know about his bloodlines with Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas. I really think the usage of the tight end and Mason Taylor specifically is going to be a very interesting piece of this offense. Speaking of the scheme, right, and what can happen on the offense, on the defensive side of the ball, I have talked a lot about how I think the Jets are going to play more man coverage and they're going to blitz a little bit more, right? And what you also need with that is you need kind of that deep safety, that safety with range, that guy like Earl Thomas was for the Legion of Boom, right? That single high safety that can go sideline to sideline and really impact kind of the passing game, the deep passing game, and get some turnovers as a quote unquote ball hawk. We here with the 2025 New York Jets expect Andre Cisco to be that guy. We signed him in free agency coming from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he is really excited to play for Aaron Glenn and has some experience in this role and has some kind of bona fides in terms of being able to turn the ball over. Listen to what Cisco had to say. He goes, "I expected a man that was going to hold us to a high standard. He's also put together a really good staff that has done a really good job. He's helped me get better, and we've had a really productive spring. I can see my game transform from day one." And I'm telling you, Cisco's going to be important. Remember, the Jets only had 7 interceptions last year on the season. That was 4th fewest in the NFL. I think the Cleveland Browns, the Giants are teams that only had less, right? And Cisco has the experience of being that turnover guy. Interceptions at Syracuse, and I know that was at college. Listen, in 3 years, he had um 13 interceptions in 3 seasons. That's 4th best all time for the Orange, including 29 passes defense. He's had 8 picks in his years with the Jaguars. And back in 2023, 0.3 yards allowed per coverage snap as a deep safety, okay? I think he is really going to be that, like I said, Earl Thomas coverage safety. he's going to be kind of not asked to necessarily tackle. You know, he's not going to be the guy covering tight ends man to man. He's going to be the guy who's that last line of defense. Again, intentionality, specific roles for the Jets on defense. And I think Cisco is going to play that role where you have guys like Sauce, guys like A.Z. Thomas, even Brandon Stevens, who has that versatility to also play safety. He could be that other safety that is covering tight ends, let's say. We know about Michael Carter as well as that slot nickel cover. Cisco is going to be kind of the rangy safety in the back. He has that experience and he is excited to kind of play for a guy like Aaron Glenn, who was in the secondary in his playing career and was with the Jets with his playing career. And that's why this is kind of a sense of pride for Aaron Glenn and something that I really like here. You know, this is something of a homecoming for Aaron Glenn. You even heard it in the interview process where he said he wanted this job. He wanted to be the guy that turned around the green and white. And I think that's an important element to have pride in this culture that he is building. And, you know, for those of you who are young, not of a certain age like me, and remember Aaron Glenn being drafted, Aaron Glenn as a player. I mean, Aaron Glenn was drafted 12th overall by the Jets in 1994. He was a first round pick. He had 24 picks in 8 seasons. He had 4 different years with the Jets where he had 4 or more picks. He's been a Pro Bowler. He was a Pro Bowler 3 times in his career, 97, 98, and then in 2002, that last one with the Houston Texans. But again, this is important to Aaron Glenn, right? He goes, this place is special for me. From the time I was drafted and practiced on Long Island, this organization has always felt like home. To any players that are here now, put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. There are going to be some challenges, but with challenges comes opportunity. Here's what I know. We're the freaking New York Jets. We are built for this. There doesn't need to be a lot of hoopla for what we're doing. We just want to go about our business and coach these players and try to create an atmosphere for them that's totally different than what they have been used to. One of the things I keep on talking about is this culture, right? But for me, the other thing here that's important, because Glenn is a former Jets player, is a sense of pride. A sense of it being special, a sense that the Jets, who around the NFL are sometimes thought of as a laughing stock, sometimes thought about as a drama-filled team, not to Aaron Glenn. This is home to Aaron Glenn. This is where he wants to be, and that is part of what he is instilling in his players. And he's actually part of what I see as a trend in the NFL and what we have seen in a couple of other recent turnarounds of franchises. He is now one of 5 head coaches in the NFL that have experience as a player for that franchise. And I actually think that's important when it comes to this pride piece, right? Look at the other ones and how they have been kind of successful in turnaround situations, right? First is the Detroit Lions with Dan Campbell. We make a lot of comparisons to Detroit. Aaron Glenn came from Detroit. Same kind of atmosphere, building pride in what they are doing for the Detroit Lions. Look at that turnaround. The Houston Texans with D'Amico Ryans, right? Played there, same kind of character as a head coach, and look at the turnaround for the Houston Texans. Doesn't hurt to have gotten your quarterback there, by the way, another Ohio State quarterback in C.J. Stroud. Think about the Los Angeles Chargers with Jim Harbaugh. Right? Made the playoffs in his first year. Arrow pointing up there. Same kind of style. Instead of pride in that franchise. Another franchise, the Chargers, who were always looked at as whether it was injuries or kicking problems or weird things would happen, preventing them from getting to that next level. And the other one now is Mike Vrabel, who has joined the New England Patriots. And obviously they believe in him, and he is kind of bringing some of that same elements of toughness and culture. So I think that's really important. And Aaron Glenn doing the same thing with the Jets, kind of in a homecoming and establishing a new defense where Cisco will have a role, bringing in some of those Detroit elements, including Tanner Engstrand, who will be creative, who should be working with Mason Taylor as a tight end the same way he had success with TJ Hawkinson and Sam Laporta. So those are the things I wanted to discuss on Jets Latest, but also one of the things I've been doing is getting your comments into the show. So let's see what some of you guys and gals had to say. First of all, Mizzo9 out there said, remember I did the schedule on a recent episode, says, I took the over on the Jets wins early because of the disrespect. I wonder if that number will go up. I've been saying it. The season win total for the Jets is 5.5. I would take the over on that. I think they're going to win 8, 9, or 10 games, something like that. And yes, as soon as Justin Fields starts maybe playing well, as soon as people realize the culture that Aaron Glenn is building, I think there's more and more buzz, more and more respect. A couple of people, analysts and experts out there being like, this Jets team can surprise. So I wouldn't be surprised if that number goes up. So I think it's a good idea, Mizzo, that you got it when you could at the 5.5. Patrick Taylor, 9450, says, did Sauce put away his golf clubs? He picked them up last year and his game went south. We've been talking about Sauce a lot lately here on Jets Latest. He did pick up a golf game and he has been on social media a ton. He is one of those players who's out there on social media. I don't know if his game went south, but it is interesting when we talk about that consistency, that focus that he needs. I wonder whether it's the golf game, whether it's Ice Spice, his newest relationship. I wonder, kind of if he will be loving football, focused on football. I believe Sauce is primed for a great year, especially being able to play in more press man coverage and taking on that leadership role for the green and white. And also you got Kenneth Ken out there who says 11 wins, right? And remember, I was talking about 9 wins. I told you how I got there. I was trying to balance my optimism with some realism. And I'm telling you here, with all the win-loss talk, I don't know how big of a turnaround the Jets are going to have this year, okay? I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, okay? But what I will say is maybe even more important than that, because they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year, in my opinion, all right? So if they make the playoffs, great. If they win 12 games, awesome, right? But what I think is more important is if when we're in January, and hopefully you guys have been with me at Jets Latest all season long, right? Watching these videos, celebrating this season with me. If we're at January and we can say, wow, they're really doing it the right way. Wow, they really showed us something. Wow, Justin Fields is our guy. I think that's enough for me to consider this, I don't know if you want to call it a success, but moving in the right direction, right? We've been languishing along, whether it's the Robert Saleh stuff with Zach Wilson, whether it's this Aaron Rodgers drama. If we can say, wow, we're impressed, we're excited, we're optimistic and hopeful for the continued direction of the Jets here with Glenn and Moji and Fields, then I think we're in good shape. All right, so thank you for the comments. As always, watch these videos, like these videos, subscribe to the Jets Latest channel, engage with me in the comments. I'll try to get some of them in on the show. But if you want to hear more from me, because people are telling me you love my content, you love the videos, you love how I bring that information for you, remember, you can also find me in a couple of other places. First of all, on social media, at Spittin' Speeds. You can always find me on SiriusXM as the host of the FTN Fantasy Show. We do a great job over there. FTN Fantasy is a great website with all sorts of, content, projections, tools, to get you ready for the fantasy season and to be a better sports bettor. I'm also on Sports Grid TV hosting a show called In Game Live, where we look around all the action that's going on at night and find live betting opportunities for you to win your leagues and win that cash. So that'll do it for this episode. Like I said, watch, feel free to comment. I'll try to get some on the show, and we will be back next week where we are on the precipice of training camp. So tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. We'll see you then. But for this episode, we out of here. Peace.